Right now, a potential Christie scandal, and get this, this has nothing to do with Bridgegate. Did the governor's office drop the ball on helping Sandy victims? We'll ask the man who was asking the questions in Trenton today. And then, it handles the heartbeat of our region, planes, trains, ships, and automobiles. But the Christie scandal has helped turn the Port Authority into one of our region's biggest punchlines. So, what is wrong with the Port Authority? And here's a question: can it be fixed? And then, Albany versus New York City. The de Blasio-Cuomo standoff spotlights a larger issue. Should New York State have so much say in what New York City does? Or should cities be more able to govern themselves? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We're getting into that and much more this hour. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday evening, February 11th. And we start tonight with the continuing investigations into New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Now, there are so many inquiries moving in so many different directions, it's pretty tough to keep track of them all. Now, last night, we reported a new round of subpoenas. There are 18 new subpoenas that were handed out, some to the same groups and people still under subpoena from the last go-round. The investigations, though, are moving in other ways as well. A number of reports have investigators asking questions about Christie's helicopter travels. The thought being the governor may have flown over Fort Lee while the traffic backups were ordered by his office and were happening in real time. There are also questions about who Christie may have been flying with. Now, the governor, in his big press conference, had denied meeting around the time of the lane closures with his then aide David Wildstein, who was then an appointee to the Port Authority. More on that later. But then this photo surfaced in front of us, and it has the two men meeting at 9/11 ceremonies at Ground Zero and after Wildstein's recent claim that proof exists that the governor knew about the lane closures at the time. Many wonder if Wildstein may have been the other guy in a Christie chopper in review of the GW mess. Now, that not the focus, though, of investigations in New Jersey's capital today, nor was the governor's questionable spending on Sandy recovery ads. No, today's focus, it was on this: recovery from the superstorm. Did the Christie administration drop the ball on helping New Jersey families when they needed help most? It's an especially touchy question given the role of Sandy efforts and how they played in the governor's popularity, as well as, of course, his re-election. So if Governor Christie didn't have enough to worry about with Bridgegate and investigations into whether he mishandled Sandy aid money, now there's a growing sense that his administration bungled the Sandy cash that they did earmark for recovery efforts. And for more, we turn now to the man who held the gavel at today's hearing, Democratic New Jersey State Senator Robert Gordon. Senator, thanks for the time.
Glad to be with you.
Well, let me ask you, what was the most damning evidence or testimony that you've heard so far, whether it relates to the where or how this money has gotten to the communities that have needed the relief most?
Well, I guess what I found most outrageous is that, you've got thousands of people who are desperate to rebuild their lives. A good number of them have actually been approved for funding, and yet the money hasn't flowed to them. It's sitting in the bank somewhere. And then what prompted the hearing today is the revelation that of those people, on the order of more than 1,000, who refused to accept a denial from the state that they didn't qualify for aid, when they appealed, we found that 80% of them, in fact, were eligible and were inappropriately denied. And so there are thousands of people out there who didn't bother to appeal because they just gave up. And in fact, a large number of them deserved to get some money. And there was just a failure in the whole application process.
From what you found in the hearing so far, is it incompetence or is it something more or politics at play here?
I think it's mainly incompetence. We really didn't get into any issues of whether money was sent to one community over another because of politics. We were finding that ordinary people were applying for a program that they were told that the money was available to help them rebuild their lives, Then they were denied. They weren't told why they were denied. Many of them weren't even told that they could appeal. So I call this just world-class incompetence.
In retrospect, were your worst fears realized here, that because there was no transparency, people couldn't see the problem happening in real time? And moreover, with the funding that still remains, are you confident it's going to get to the right people in the right fashion?
Well, you know, what we learned today is that a private, really a not-for-profit organization of lawyer advocates did some analysis on their own and discovered that 80% of the people who were denied funding were in fact eligible for the money. The state government didn't tell us this. This information wasn't available on a website anywhere. If it hadn't been for this individual group of advocates, we never would have known about this. So there is a total lack of transparency here, contrary to what the Christie administration has been touting as the key feature of their program, that this is going to be a transparent process. There was no transparency. And in answer to your second question, yes, I'm gravely concerned that we have $1.4 billion coming from the federal government in the next round of funding. And unless we fix this program, we're just going to be sending the money into a flawed system again, and the money is not going to get to those who need it the most.
How much is the ongoing investigation, the subpoenas, and everything that's going on right now making this process even that much more difficult and making trust so hard to come by when it comes to trusting the administration is going to do the right thing to getting the money to the people who need it?
Well, I think what's been happening is that there's now a question in everyone's mind whether politics has been involved in the process. You know, with regard to the program we examined today in the Oversight Committee, I don't believe politics was a major factor. I think it really was just sheer incompetence.
Does your instincts and experience in Trenton say that this story and this investigation is going to get a lot bigger before it's all over and a lot more people are going to be implicated?
My belief, just based on my own experience with this administration and knowing the people who've been involved so far, is that this is a bigger story, that there are more blockbusters coming, that the people that have been named so far are not the people who make the decisions in this administration. And this is an administration that is very tightly controlled from the highest levels.
Senator Gordon, I really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Glad to help. Thanks a lot.
Now, you heard Senator Gordon there talking about at the very end about Bridgegate there and where he thinks this might go. And one final bit of Christie-related news this evening. The governor's re-election campaign is back in business. The campaign was given permission to keep raising money to help pay legal costs associated with the investigation. The campaign and some officials under both state and federal subpoena, and in some cases, fighting those requests to produce the documents. Okay. All these issues and much more facing New Jersey. We'll get a much closer inspection later on this week here. Bridgegate, Christie, basically anything that comes under the sun of New Jersey politics will be on the table on Thursday for the annual Walk to Washington. I will be stuck, together on one train with these politicos, including a lot of the folks here running these investigations. We'll have live interviews throughout the day as we make our way to the nation's capital and meet up with a congressional and Senate delegation for New Jersey. Governor Christie is supposed to be on the train and speaking that night. We shall see if he'll be in attendance, but that will be a big part of our Thursday night broadcast right here on RFL. Okay. When we come back, everyone, you've all heard of the Port Authority, and you maybe even heard what Vice President Biden called LaGuardia being basically the third world, which a lot of people nodded along after their experiences in the airport. But with so much coming under the heading of the Port Authority, we thought we'd talk about what really the Port Authority is, what they're in charge of, and why so many problems seem to fall at the feet of that agency. Richard Brodsky and our crew will join us right after this.